Hello everyone. So today we'll discuss about atomic structure, which is chapter number 12 of class 12. So firstly we have Thomson's model. So prior to Thomson's model, other atomic models were like Dalton's atomic model, which came in the year 1808. Thomson's model was proposed in the year 1909. You have after that we have Rutherford's model. Rutherford's model was proposed in the year 1911. And then we have Bohr's model, which applies only in case of one electron model or one electron system, that came in the year, or that was proposed in the year 1913. Now Thomson's model is also known as Thomson's plum pudding model. Thomson's plum pudding model. Plum pudding model. So he called the electrons as plums. Okay, electrons as plums. Now he called the positive, sorry, I should rather say as negative charge and positive charge. Okay, but writing down electron will also do. So like positive charges, because like protons were not discovered at that time, therefore they were calling this as positively charged. So positive charges were called as, he called them as pudding. Okay, so you can also compare the situation with the watermelon, where the seeds will be compared, or seeds will be taken as electrons, and the flesh of the watermelon will be taken as positively charged. So one idea which stayed valid till today from Thomson's model was the neutrality of atom. Neutrality of atom. So this was the only valid idea that came forward. Now what were his failures or limitations, you can say? What were the limitations of the model? Limitations: number one, could not explain stability. Could not explain stability of atom. Okay, that is number one. Number two, could not explain the large angle of scattering. Large angle of scattering in Rutherford's model. Okay, so he could not explain that, why it happens. He also could not explain the atomic spectra, okay, which was later explained by Niels Bohr. Atomic spectra. So these were some questions which came up, like the second, stability as well as large angle of scattering. This was addressed by Rutherford's planetary model, and the atomic spectra was addressed by Bohr's atomic model. So we will see Rutherford's model next. So basically in Rutherford's model, what you have this alpha particle source. Now what is an alpha particle? It's a helium nucleus, right? You have this gold foil or gold sheet, which is like 2.1 into 10 to the power minus 7 meter is the thickness. Okay, now alpha particle or alpha beam was fired from an alpha source, and it was found that, like, if you have to refer to this diagram, a single atom diagram is shown over here. It was found that most alpha beams were passing straight undeviated. Now when they pass straight, you consider the angle of scattering to be 0 degree, like, right? Now there were a large number of particles which had angle of scattering 0 degree. Now some alpha particles some alpha particles had scattering angle between 0 and 90 degree. Okay, some, even a comparatively minimum number, had scattering angle between 90 and 180 degrees. So these were the ones between 90 and 180 degree, and very few had scattering angle 180 degree. They passed, or they moved back along the same path. Now they stopped here for a while, and then they bounced back in the opposite direction. Okay, so this had scattering angle 180 degree. Now we can plot a graph between the number of alpha particles and the scattering angle. The relation is 1 by, like, n proportional to 1 by sin to the power 4 theta by 2, where theta is the scattering angle. Now in accordance with this, relation this graph is plotted. You see, when the scattering angle is close to 0 degree, you have large number of alpha particles over here. As the scattering angle is increasing towards 90 and then 180, you see there is a fall in the number of fall in the number of alpha particles. Okay, so the number of alpha particles having larger scattering angle is very less, okay, and having less, like 0 degree scattering angle, is very large. So this is the connection between this graph and this particular relation. So what were the postulates from Bohr's model? Now postulate number 1, you can say, like, positively charged particles and most of the mass, okay, were concentrated in a very small region, okay, and like Ernest Rutherford called this region as nucleus. Okay, so nucleus is positively charged as well as entire mass was concentrated here. Okay, positively charged, and we can write down massive. Okay, that was point number 1. Number 2, electrons or negatively charged particles, they surround the nucleus. They revolve in certain orbits, okay, with high speed, and he called those orbits as circular paths. Okay, or he called those circular paths as orbits. He named those circular paths as orbits. So electrons revolve is the second point. Third point is, now electrons are negatively charged and nucleus is positively charged. So he said that Coulomb's force of attraction was holding the electrons in their particular orbit. Okay, so Coulomb's force holds the electron holds the electron around the nucleus. So these were the 3 postulates of Rutherford's model, you can say. What was the failure? The failure was he could not explain when he was questioned, like, if an electron keeps on revolving around the nucleus, then it will become weak over a period of time and gradually it will start falling inside. If the electron keeps on falling inside, now there will be a time when the electron finally dips into the, or you can say falls into the nucleus. Now that will lead to collapse of the entire atom. Now if an atom collapses, then nothing will exist, like the universe will not exist. Okay, but this is not the case in reality. Like atoms are existing, universe is existing, everything is existing. So he could not explain this thing. So this was later on explained by Bohr's model. Okay, we'll come to that later. And before that, what is distance of closest approach? Whenever an alpha particle, we have seen this situation previously, whenever an alpha particle approaches the nucleus, now there is a point or there is a position till which the alpha particle moves. It stops for a while, then it flies off in the opposite direction in the same path. So the entire kinetic energy of the alpha particle, okay, when it stops here for a moment, it converts into the potential energy of this alpha particle and the nucleus system. Okay, so and then this potential energy again converts into kinetic energy, and the the alpha particle goes back into the opposite direction. Now this distance from nucleus to this point, you call this as distance of closest approach. Okay, so how do you define that? It is like, this is the closest distance between the center of the nucleus and the point from which the alpha particle approaching directly to the nucleus returns. Okay, so the relation for distance of closest approach is r0 equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2 ze square divided by k. Now here, like 2 ze square, out of this, like twice E is the charge of the alpha particle because of 2 protons, right? And Ze is the charge of the nucleus. So when you multiply these two, you get 2 ze square, right? So you can say that distance of closest approach is is directly proportional to product of the charges, okay, and it is inversely proportional to kinetic energy of the approaching alpha particle, so k alpha, right? Now if you write down 2ze square divided by k alpha, value is half of mv square, therefore this relation comes out to be 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 4ze square divided by mv square. Okay, so these are the three relations for distance of closest approach. Here m is the mass of the alpha particle, okay, in this case, and here v is the speed of the alpha particle. Do not cancel this 4 and this 4 because you have a direct value for 1 by 4 by epsilon naught, which is 9 into 10 to the power 9. Now that will help or make your calculations easier. If you cancel that, then you have to deal with the value of epsilon, which is 8.85 into 10 to the power minus 12, okay, farad per meter. So we go to impact parameter next. So impact parameter is basically this perpendicular distance from these axes which passes through the center of the nucleus. Okay, this perpendicular distance, this perpendicular distance. Okay, so if you talk like for this particular alpha particle path, okay, or alpha beam or velocity vector, you can say, okay, velocity vector. Now for this particular trajectory of the alpha particle, b is maximum. You see, when theta, scattering angle is 0 degree here, right? Theta is 0 degree here, then b is maximum. Now for this particular, the yellow line here, number 3, for this particular trajectory of alpha particle, the scattering angle is maximum 180 degree, but the impact parameter, that is b value, is 0 for this yellow line. Okay, so the relation for impact parameter is, the relation for impact parameter that you need to remember is b equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught ze square cot theta by 2, okay, divided by k alpha. So it is just like the previous relation, but there you had, you see, this first relation 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught 2ze square by k alpha. There you have ze square cot theta by 2 by k alpha. So you can just remember it in this manner, like in place of 2 you have a cot theta by 2 here. Rest everything is same in impact parameter. Okay, I hope this is clear. Next we have, okay, we have Bohr's model after this. So you have to remember that Bohr's model applies in one electron system only. Okay, so what are the examples of one electron system? Hydrogen, helium plus, lithium 2 plus. Okay, so it will apply only in these 3 cases. So what were the postulates of Bohr or proposed by Niels Bohr? Number 1, that electrons revolve in fixed stationary orbits or fixed energy states. Okay, now they do not take or give energy, they do not gain or lose energy. Whatever orbits they revolve in, these were called stationary orbits, okay, fixed energy states, or you can say fixed energy states. So this actually solves the limitation of Rutherford's model. In what way? The question of electrons losing energy when they are orbiting in a particular energy state does not arise at all. This has to be clear. Okay, the thing which was questioned, like whenever an electron revolves it will continuously lose energy, that thing doesn't arise at all, because the first postulate is saying that they have fixed energy, okay, at a particular orbit or at a particular energy level. Number 2, electrons revolve only in those orbits whose angular momentum follows the relation L equal to mvr equal to nh by 2 pi. Okay, so here n is the principal quantum number, or n equal to, where n equals to 1 2 3 dot dot. So this is like, you say, integral multiple of h by twice pi or complete multiple of h by twice pi. So only those orbits which satisfies this angular momentum relation, okay, this particular relation, an electron can exist there. Okay, otherwise electron will not exist. When the angular momentum value is like 1.5 h by twice pi, 2.2 h by twice pi, in those cases electrons will not appear. Number 3, electrons can definitely jump from an outer energy level to an inner energy level. In that situation, a photon will be released, okay, whose energy will be h nu. Now this energy will be equal to the energy difference between the initial and the final states, and therefore E will be equal to EI minus EF, or you can say h nu equals to hc by lambda equals to EI minus EF. So this is the third postulate. Whenever an electron de-excites from a higher energy state to a lower energy state, it releases photon whose energy is equal to the energy difference between the initial and the final states. So that is the third postulate. Now, by applying Bohr's model, we calculate relation for radius of nth Bohr orbit, then you calculate velocity, you calculate energy, etc. So Bohr's model of, or Bohr's theory of hydrogen atom. Theory of hydrogen atom. Now this will also apply to helium plus and lithium 2 plus. Okay, so first, radius calculation. What is the relation for radius? Radius relation Rn equals to n square h square by 4 pi square m ke square. Okay, so this is the radius relation in expression. Once you put this value for Planck's constant, h, pi, mass of electron, Coulomb's constant k, and charge of electron E, and you perform the calculation, you get this. Rn equals to 0.53 n square angstrom. So what is 1 angstrom? 1 angstrom is 10 to the power minus 10 meter. So this is for hydrogen atom. For hydrogen like system, this relation becomes 0.53 n square divided by z angstrom. Now you see here that Rn is actually proportional to n square. Okay, so you can plot a graph like R versus n graph will go like this, and R versus n square graph will go like this. Okay, so that is about radius. Number 2, velocity calculation. So what is the relation for velocity? Vn equals to, the actual relation comes out to be 2.2 into 10 to the power 6 divided by n meter per second. Now you can like for convenience of calculation, you can write it as 2 into 10 to the power 6 divided by n meter per second. So this is for hydrogen atom. So for hydrogen like system, the relation comes out to be 2 into 10 to the power 6 z by n meter per second. So again, if you plot a graph between velocity and n, okay, so here you have Vn is inversely proportional n. So V versus n relation. So when it is V versus n, for increasing value of n, you will have exponentially falling value of V. But when it is V versus 1 by n, it will be a directly proportional graph, straight line. Next, number 3, we have energy calculation, total energy. So it has 3 parts actually. First, kinetic energy relation. The kinetic energy relation is ke square by twice r, where r is the radius of that particular orbit, k is the Coulomb's constant, E is the charge. Okay, so this is the relation for kinetic energy. The potential energy relation is EP equals to minus ke square by r. That is the potential energy relation. And number C, total energy. Total energy E equals to, you have to add both of them and you get minus ke square by twice R. So that is the relation for total energy. Now we know the value for R is n square h square by 4 pi square m k e square, right? So 4 pi square m k e square. So after calculation, it gets you minus 2 pi square m k square e to the power 4 divided by n square h square. So that is the expression for En. Now once you put these values, all the constants, you get the value as minus 13.6 divided by n square electron volt. So that is your relation for En. Okay, that is equation number 13 in your PDF. Now for hydrogen-like system, the relation becomes minus 13.6 Z square by n square electron volt. Okay. Now from the above, like you had Ek equals to Ke square by twice R, Ep equals to minus Ke square by R, and E equals to minus Ke square by twice R again. So you have Ek equals to minus E, you have Ep equals to double of E, right? You see from the above equation. Now we also can write from this particular relation, you also can write Ek is inversely proportional R. From the second one, from this relation you can write minus Ep inversely proportional R, and from the last relation you can write minus E, total energy, is inversely proportional to R. Okay, therefore the graph plot will be like, say, Ek versus R. As R increases, kinetic energy will drop exponentially. Ep versus, well, Ep is negative, right? With the increasing value of R, Ep is getting negative. Therefore, the graph will be, this is R and this is Ep, minus Ep actually. So the graph will be like this. Even for total energy, the graph will be like this, minus E R. Now if you put these graphs all together in a single plot, then you can show it like this. In this manner you can show it. Say Ek is this needs to be exponentially falling. Okay, yeah. So this is energy versus R. Okay, so this is the curve for Ek. This is the curve for Ep, and this is the curve for E. This will be a combined curve. Well, next we have number 4. We have time period. Time period of revolution of the electron around the nucleus. The relation comes out to be n cube h cube divided by 4 pi square mk square e to the power 4. Okay, the derivations are worked out in the actual PDF that I'll share in the group. Okay, in the WhatsApp group. If you're interested, you can go through that. Now this is equation number 17 in accordance with the PDF. Now once you put the values of the constant, then you get Tn equals to 1.51 into 10 to the power minus 16 n cube seconds. Okay. So number 5, the graph you can plot it all by yourself. This is pretty easy. Number 5, frequency. I won't be doing the graph for this too. Okay, the graphs are worked out in the PDF. You can see that. Okay, so frequency relation comes out to be for nth energy level or nth orbit, 4 pi square m k square e to the power 4 divided by n cube h cube. This is the inverse of time period, right? So once you put the values, you get 6.62 into 10 to the power 15 divided by n cube. So this is the relation for frequency. These are equation number 19 and 20 in accordance with the PDF. So thank you. I'll include the remaining topics in one more lecture and it will be over. Okay, so thank you so much.